Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I'm your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we're chatting with David Pettifer from Board Wreckers, Inc. David is a first-time game designer with his title Drags to Riches, which was developed alongside members of the drag community. Drags to Riches recently funded on Kickstarter. David, welcome to the Binge. How you doing?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, it's awesome having you. Man, this is a fun-looking game, and I want to congratulate you first and foremost for funding for a first-time developer, first-time Kickstarter. That's a great accomplishment. More people fail than actually fund. So way to go on that. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It feels very validating, actually. It's nice to see that people believe in the project and the idea. So yeah.
Oh, absolutely. So you've been board gaming for a number of years. I saw in your bio. When would you say you started in I would call it the hobby industry, because pre-hobby industry is like Monopoly and all that kind of stuff, but kind of hobbies when people get into Catan and later on. When did that start for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think my actual journey with games that were slightly off the beaten track was Pokemon cards back in the 90s.
Okay, nice.
I couldn't get any of my friends to play it with me, but my mum would play it with me. Everybody just wanted to collect the cards. I actually wanted to play the game, and none of my friends did. And even then, I started making my own sort of like clones of Pokemon cards as a game, like a re-sleeve of Pokemon. But I can't promise that it was a very good game. But so I guess the more recent indie games hobby, I think it was at university. One of my friends, he introduced me to Dominion, which is obviously the granddaddy of
love
deck
that game. One of my favorites.
Yeah, and it was awesome, and it was cool to play something that nobody'd ever really knew amongst my friends. I was like, oh, this is awesome. So I got into that, and then actually I was a big fan of the Oatmeal, the comic series, and I was one of the backers of the Exploding Kittens Kickstarter campaign, which is obviously has
exploded.
Has an amazing history, and brought tons of people to the platform. So I was one of those who'd never heard of Kickstarter before until then, and I think that really sort of awoke my excitement in new exciting games that are out there and coming out, and it started from there, I'd say.
So when did you may I ask, what do you do for a living? What's your kind of day job outside of this?
So I've had a weird career trajectory. I'm not even sure it's a trajectory at this point, but so I actually was doing a PhD a few months ago, which I decided to quit after handing in my thesis because it just wasn't the right thing for me. I wasn't enjoying being in academia. I was studying chimpanzee behavior, so I've spent a year living in Côte d'Ivoire chasing chimpanzees.
I think I do that on YouTube on a daily basis, but go ahead.
Yeah. That which I loved, and I loved that aspect of it, the field work. But right now I work as a data analyst, which I also really love because I just enjoy data. I enjoy messing around with it, creating things. I actually spend a lot of time creating beautiful charts to show to clients. So yeah,
that's awesome. What I do for data. And then when did you first start kind of digging into, like you said, and I think a lot of people do this, right? Is when they're younger, when they first kind of get interested in maybe creating something of their own, they'll usually take something that exists and say, I'm gonna do my own spin on this. Either I'll do house rules, or maybe I'll create it with my own custom cards. I mean, when I was a kid, my friends and I created like nuclear warheads for Risk, right? So we added nuclear warheads to Risk that you could get in the game and so forth. So, I mean, I think a lot of us do that. But then the next step from there is saying, okay, I'm actually going to create a game, or I have an idea for a game. Was this the first game you created, or was there other games, ideas that you worked on before Drags to Riches?
Yeah, so I guess this is my first the one where I actually, properly gave it a go. Obviously, there was that Pokemon thing that I made years
Sure.
and years ago, but it wasn't like a real serious thing. But this was the first time where I actually was like, here's an idea, I'm gonna have a go, I'm gonna invest in trying to make it. And so that was probably maybe 5, 6 years ago when the sort of genesis of the idea. It was actually a friend who suggested the drag theme one day when we were sort of bored watching TV, thinking, oh, we should come up with an idea for a game. And just so happened they were watching RuPaul's Drag Race, which is obviously, a phenomenal TV show. It's done incredibly well all over the world. And I was like, oh my God, drag, that's a great idea. And I could think of a really good mechanic that would fit that. So I went, bought some blank cards and some Sharpies, started writing numbers on some cards with, little bits of text, took me hours, and we had a go, and it was rubbish. And I was like, no, it wasn't worth it. Put it in a box, hid it under the TV stand, and didn't see it again for many, many years.
Oh, wow.
Because it was just broken. And I think I was just so demoralized by the monotony of having to write on all those cards again.
Yeah.
I just couldn't bring myself to do it. So it was actually when I was coming to sort of the natural end of my PhD, where I was like, well, I'm not enjoying this. I need to find some skills for outside of academia, because I've been studying basically my entire life. I went and did some business courses at the uni, really enjoyed that. And I said, I want to do more of this. What can I do? And they said, well, the university will give you a small bit of money if you've got a cool idea. You just have to go and apply for it, and it's sort of there to give you a kickstart and get that idea off the ground. They were like, have you got any good ideas? And I was like, well, I did have this one idea. It didn't really work, but I've been wanting to go back and revisit it again. They were like, go for it. Why don't I apply for the money? So I managed to get a small amount of money. I managed to find an artist online, which is what I really needed the money for, because I'm not an artist at all.
The artwork is great, by the way. It's fantastic.
All kudos to my artist, who's been absolutely brilliant. His name's Greco Westerman, so everybody should check him out on @GrecoVia on Instagram, because his art's brilliant. And if you're into movie monsters and dinosaurs, that's actually his MO. That's what he does mostly, and it's the reason I started following him, because I'm a nerd. Like, I love those things. Like, I love sci-fi, love dinosaurs. And it was a Jurassic Park versus reality comparison post he did, because he loves paleontology, and I come from a biology background, so I love all that kind of stuff as well. And I saw that, and I started following him on Instagram. And when it came to me needing some artwork, I had no idea where to find an artist from, so I just had a little scout around on Instagram, and I was like, oh, there's that guy I've been following, I should have a look. And I had a look at his page, and I was like, the colors are amazing, and they show they show color in this like amazing, beautiful way, lots of vibrant color, but without being garish. And that's what I was really worried about, was that I knew how the mechanics of the game were going to work. I couldn't really envisage the artwork properly because I'm not an artist, but I knew I didn't want it to look so in your face that it just didn't do it justice. So I saw his artwork, saw the colors in it, and I was like, I think it could work. And then I saw he'd done an image of Doja Cat, the artist. It looked beautiful. And I was like, okay, if he can do that, he can do drag. So he was the first person I messaged. I sent him a little message just saying, look, I know you do commissions. Don't suppose you'd be interested in doing a game about drag. And he replied saying, oh my God, I love drag. I'm well up for this. And it turned out that he's Bolivian, and he lived in Buenos Aires. And he used to work in gay bars that had a big drag scene. So he's brought so much knowledge and experience to it, which has been fantastic. So just the first person I spoke to, and happened to be the perfect person for the game, really.
So you got a grant to help you seed, then you're going in to do your Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah, so the grant basically covered the artwork costs, or some of them, as I've had.
It's a big cost for a lot of people, right? Like.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I know your podcast is talking a bit about like the business and the creator side of things.
That's all right. Yeah.
So no, I just wanted to say that one of the things I did in terms of the design to try and keep the artwork costs low was I would have Greco. We would design one of the characters, and then we would break down that character into constituent parts, which we would use in the cards, so that actually most of the design costs were in the character, and then a small amount of design cost in breaking it down.
That's smart.
And it just meant that, especially early on, because it meant we could create a lot of designs and get that minimum amount that we need, so that then it's like, you know, completely visual, completely playable. And it just meant that, yeah, I could get there faster. And then now it gives us more opportunity to actually go back and revisit some of that and put in some more original artwork. So yeah, I thought that's a good strategy. If
that is an amazing point. So I'm just going to kind of pull on that thread a little bit more, because I think for our listeners who are especially doing game design or looking at doing their own campaigns, I think that's a very important point, that you don't necessarily have to go and commission every single individual piece. You can commission some macro pieces that you create some of your smaller pieces out of, right? And that's a great way to try to save costs, especially for the original concept, right? That you're going to put out there. And then maybe if you overfund on your campaign, you can invest in doing even more custom work, but that will get you 90% there. Quite frankly, we did that on our last 2 campaigns, right? We commissioned kind of key characters, key backgrounds, and then mix and match and taking components of this and that to kind of fill in the rest of the stuff that we needed. So that's no, I'm glad you brought that up. So you're not actually a drag queen yourself, though, right? Or you are?
No,
you're not.
No,
okay.
no, I'm not a drag artist. I don't have the skills, the talent, the charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent, as they say. No, I don't have any of that, unfortunately.
Definitely the charisma for sure. So how did you approach this? So not being into drag yourself, how did you approach making sure you got this right and that it was respectful to the community and that, you know, it was going to be quite frankly accepted?
Yeah, so that was one of my biggest concerns was, you know, I had this idea for the game and I thought I could make it look beautiful, but actually, you know, I'm not a drag queen, so it's somebody else's art form, and I didn't want to take it and do something with it where actually I didn't consult the community, because, like, you know, I wanted to make sure that they felt seen. And actually one of the biggest drivers of the idea for this game was, you know, creating something where actually LGBTQ plus characters are front and center, you know, and they can be in your living room. Like, you know, my box is up there for Drags to Riches. So, what I did was I spoke to some drag queens online, and a drag king as well, who was really helpful, and they gave their feedback and time, and sort of said, you know, think about these things, try and maybe think about your use of language and make sure that although it's a competitive game, it could be thought of in more positive ways. So there was lots of stuff I did there to modulate things like that. And I also, so I guess like one of my main consultants was a guy called Ricky, and Ricky is an angel. We love Ricky. He runs a shop local to me in Birmingham called Sequin Showstoppers, and it's one of the only brick and mortar drag stores in the UK, as far as I'm aware. But it just means he has all the world famous drag queens coming through his shop, like all the time. He's very well connected, and he just knows the industry inside and out. So he's been there, like offering advice, helping me connect with drag queens and getting their opinions on things. And it's been a really useful and important journey for me to go down that route. And the other thing that's been brilliant as well is I've been able to actually give paid work to drag queens as well. So I feel like I'm communicating with the community and making sure that actually their voice is within this game as much as possible, but also I'm actually giving back to the community. And I think that's really important. And so one of the parts of the Kickstarter pledges is going to be a history of drag companion booklet, because
that's cool.
Another thing I think is really important is about education, and educating people about what drag is, because it's awesome, but it's got a really important history that I think, people who are playing, if they don't know, I think they should know. So I've been able to bring on a writer who comes from the LGBTQ plus community, and they will be producing that resource, which again is great because it means I'm able to give paid work to someone in the community that's going to provide education for hopefully a much larger market, and hopefully people who don't know about drag, and actually, you know, it will open their eyes to it a bit. So.
Yeah, I did some research. leading into today. And from what I could find, 1880, I think, is the first time it was officially seen, like drag was officially a thing in the United States. I think it was in Washington, D.C. But there's quite a history, right? And when you go through the amount of intolerance that is kind of, and misunderstanding, quite frankly, that's been over the years, it's nice that we're at a place now, right? And unfortunately, a lot of people had to go through, the tough times to get us to where we're at right now, where it's become a lot more mainstream, right?
Yeah.
I think RuPaul is probably, Drag Race is probably a great example of that, right? When you're watching on TV is when you first kind of got the idea for the game. So I think bringing that into kind of the forefront has been great, definitely for this community. The video that you have in your campaign is awesome. I encourage people to go watch it. It is hilarious. The drag queens, and they're playing the game and they're getting upset when they're losing and so forth. Where did you film that, and where did you get these the talent from? How did that all come together?
Yeah, so that was filmed at Sequin Showstoppers, so this drag store that I was on about. And as you can see, it's like a fabulous backdrop because it's just full of awesome sequins, full of glitter. It's just the perfect place for it. So basically, Ricky, the owner, he helped me find 4 drag queens, and we all turned up at a shop on a day, and I brought a film crew along, and they looked at the shop and they were like, "Oh my God, we've got some work to do in here." They destroyed the whole place, and I felt so bad. They didn't destroy it, but they rearranged it quite severely. But one of the drag queens we'd booked to come and do it, unfortunately, had COVID. So the film crew and Ricky and the drag queens all said to me, "I've got to get into drag." They were like, "You need to do it anyway because it's your game."
Of course.
And I'd always say, I've cross-dressed at times in my life, but I've not done drag as the art form, I would say. And I'd said, whilst during this process, I was never going to do drag without being invited to by a drag queen, because I didn't want it to be disrespectful. I wanted them to welcome me into that art form, as it were. So, when I was, as soon as they said, they wanted me to do it, I was really up for it. And luckily, one of them is an incredible makeup artist, so she was able to do my makeup. Ricky decked me out in some stuff from his shop, and it was so much fun. It was kind of weird being both an actor and trying to kind of organize the film crew as well, but I tried to leave them to it as much as possible because not a professional drag queen, not a professional filmmaker, so I was like, right, okay, try and let them do their job, and try not to manage it too much from the back.
In your research, is there something that you found that, or I guess to say another way, what's one thing that is most misunderstood, do you think, in the drag community for people that are not part of the community looking from the outside in?
Yeah, I guess people tend to think of drag as being quite catty, or, it's all about being savage to each other and being fierce. And there is elements of that, and it is a lot of fun. And there are drag queens who are very, that is their persona, but it is a persona. It's not the reality of what drag necessarily is. Drag is a form of gender expression and an art form sort of combined. And it's loving, accepting, it's creating families for people who unfortunately have been cast out of their family for being who they are. And I think, drag, it just, the most interesting thing about drag is it has no boundaries. It really sort of defies definition. And I guess what the most surprising thing I found was when somebody came to talk to me and was kind of acting as a drag consultant. They were a male drag king, so that is someone who dresses as someone who is identifies as male and dresses as a man in drag. And it was he was like, I'm like one of the only people who does that. He was like, I don't know many others like me either. But I just love that it can just completely defy boundaries, and it's just about you expressing yourself in a way that makes you feel happy. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. Like, it really is. It's a really beautiful thing. And when I got into drag, I felt like a completely different person, and I loved it. I had a great time, and I don't know, it just elevates your mood and it takes you to a different place. So I would recommend trying drag to anybody who gets an opportunity.
Certainly, I think there's probably parallels with the board game industry, right? Because there's a lot of love and acceptance in the board game industry, and a lot of it is about community and being yourself and being with others, not not worrying about anything other than just each other's company and having fun. So
Yeah,
I think
and escapism as well, I would say,
sure,
because you get to become someone different for an evening. Like, you could be playing a pirate, you could be playing whatever a
yeah,
warrior, a drag
exactly.
queen. You get to become somebody that isn't your day-to-day reality, and it means your entire personality can be something different if you want to, especially if it's a role-playing game or something like
Yeah,
that. So
oh for
yeah, I
sure.
think I think there are interesting parallels for sure.
So walk us through this game. For those, try to use descriptive language for those who are listening and not actually watching. But how do you play Drags of Riches? So this is a deck builder, right?
Yes. So you are a drag queen just starting out on the circuit, and you've got a wardrobe, which is your deck in this game, and that wardrobe or deck contains some cards, but they're all pretty basic. It's some rubbish hair, rubbish heels, rubbish makeup, things like that. And you can play those cards down, and some of them will give you some money, which allows you to buy better cards from the center where there's like a common market. And those cards are much more fabulous. Everything you buy, everything you use, it all goes into your discard pile, or in the terminology of this game, it's your floor drobe. So once you try things on, it all ends up in a pile on the floor until you dry clean it again, and it comes back to your wardrobe. So essentially, you use up your wardrobe, you shuffle your floor drobe, your discard pile, and it becomes your new wardrobe. So you're constantly adding cards to your deck, which will turn up later on in the game. And then to win the game, every round reveals a new event, and that event could be worth a certain number of points. It could be a pageant worth 5 points, or an extravaganza worth eight or 10 points. And to compete for that event, you need to have played some of your cards face down in front of you. So this is forming what we call your look. Now, a look can consist of one hair, one heels, one makeup, one accessories, one outfit.
Mm.
And at the end of the round, once everybody's had a turn, anybody with some look cards face down in front of them can put their hand out, and on the count of three, either reveal a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If it's thumbs up, they're saying, right, I am going to reveal my look. I'm going to try and win that event on the table. You flip over your look, you compare it to all the other revealed looks, and you see who has the highest score across the top, which is actually the cost of the cards when you buy them. And only one of you will win that event, but everybody who reveals has to discard their look, because they can't wear the same thing twice. Of course, that would be outrageous. So anybody who didn't reveal gets to keep their cards face down
Yeah.
and add on to them in the next round. Maybe switch out a card that's not as good. Basically, work on it a bit longer. Perhaps instead of going in for the 3-point event card that's available now, waiting a couple of rounds for that 7 points that they think is going to come up in the future. So there's a push your luck style element there about when to go in and when to hold back. There's bluffing, because you don't know when somebody else is going to reveal at the same time as you. So it adds a really nice dynamic, a little excitement, a little tension.
That's cool. And when you first designed this game, you said it wasn't quite ready. There was something that wasn't kind of working. What was the major change that you made from that original design, and what was the aha moment for you that kind of brought together and kind of finished it off to what you see here mechanically?
So with that first one, I mean, it was just a complete dud. So I don't even consider the next iteration of it to be an improvement. I consider it to be like the first attempt, really, like the first one where I actually thought about it a bit.
Yeah.
Because I put things in like negative, like point values. I was like, well, who would be buying those negative cards? It didn't really make sense. It was just one of those stupid things where you thought, oh, maybe we should do things like that. It didn't really work. But I guess, like, for me, the biggest turning point was it was actually the pandemic, because I had plenty of free time, and I knew I didn't want to stay in academia. I was looking for these other routes, and so I was like, well, I will focus on this. I need to find a way of, like, maybe there's like a digital way that I could create a prototype of the game. And I found there's plenty of software out there, and at the time I was using Tabletop Simulator, and it meant that I could quickly and easily make a prototype without having to go through all that monotonous writing on cards, which I hate. Give me a spreadsheet all day long. I'm a data analyst. That's what I do. So I found a way to port stuff into Tabletop Simulator, and it meant that I could play test it with my friends online, all over the world, all over the country, in the pandemic, where actually you couldn't get together and play games. And I think that was a really important catalyst for me, because it forced me to think of a digital solution and do it. And it was so much easier doing it that way for me, because all I had to do if I needed to change a card where I was like, oh, this is a broken card, I just type in something in a text box on Excel and then click save, and that's it. And then I'd have a different card in the game. So that, I think, was my biggest turning point.
What would you say is one of your biggest challenges in this campaign as a whole?
Do you know what? It's so hard building an audience. So, as you and I were discussing just prior to this,
there's a lot of challenges, right? Yeah, like on every campaign.
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges, but also I have my game comes with quite a specific Venn diagram, as you said, where I have the LGBTQ plus community, gamers, and then also, as you pointed out, people who know Kickstarters, which I always assumed that most gamers did, but it's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
And it's about trying to engage that audience that sit in that tiny circle in the middle.
Yeah.
Which is really difficult. And it's so hard. It's a graft, and there's no easy solution and there's no cheap solution. But for me, I found the most effective thing was in-person events. Going to games expos, doing demos wherever I could, just getting people to play the game or see the game was so effective, because everybody ignores adverts unless it's rammed down your throat. And the only way you can ram it down someone's throat is with a lot of money. I didn't have a lot of money. I'd spent years being a student. So now I've got a full-time job. It's the first time I've ever had actual money. I was having to do everything in the low budget way, and even going to conventions can be really expensive. So luckily, a lot of them offer like an early first timer discount, which is great, and it definitely did help me get into them. But yeah, even going to those conventions, just having a mailing list and asking people to sign up on it, even after they played the game, that was so hard. And people don't want to be on mailing lists. People are desperately trying to cut down on the amount of emails they receive, which is totally understandable. I do it all the time. I'm like, okay, this is no longer relevant to me, and so I come off it. So actually, I didn't feel like my mailing list was where it should be when I launched the campaign. But I'd been preparing and planning with the idea that I would launch the game to coincide with the UK Games Expo, which is local to me in Birmingham anyway, and it's like the biggest one in the UK, and this year it had 26,000 people there across 3 days. So I would always planned to do that, and it was getting close, and I was like, right, I am going to launch, even though I don't feel ready, because if it fails, I'll relaunch it again after, and I'll have built some audience in the process. But yeah, I got maybe 36% of the way there after the first 3 days at the expo, and I was happy with that. I mean, I know conventional wisdom is you want to get as big a spike as you can in those early days, and some people say you need like 60% funding in the first 2 days to get onto the Kickstarter front page or whatever it is. But I know people who were in a similar situation to me who were cancelling their projects. But I decided not to.
I was one of those guys. I literally just pulled a campaign after 48 hours. Or like, this is dead on arrival. We had the Yankee right on the Game Found, and it's like, okay, it's such a challenge that the math is the math, right? And you and I were talking just before we went on air here that, especially with a game that's got a lower retail price, it becomes infinitely more difficult to try to spend your way to the finish line, right? Through more advertising, more marketing, because you're at a point where your acquisition cost is getting pretty close to what your pledge cost is. And that's kind of like, you're doing it because you want to get across the finish line, right? And it is one of the toughest things ever to pull it. Kudos to you for sticking with it, because you guys got across the finish line and funded well in this game, and now this game is going to get out to the world, which I think is amazing. It's interesting when you're talking with the email list, and I was talking to Joe Slack about this, is that what people have to realize when you build an email list, you have to accept the fact that every time you send an email, you're going to lose subscribers. So you're going to spend money to get subscribers, and then every single e-blast you do, you're going to have people that are going to jump ship. right? And that's just part of the game. And man, does it ever hurt the first time you start experiencing that, because it costs so much to build that list. Then when people start jumping out, but that's the reality. You got to kind of work that into your math. But again, I want to congratulate you on this campaign, because you guys did get across the finish line, and the game looks absolutely awesome. What is next up for you guys? So like, are you going to stick with the drag theme, or do you have some other ideas, or are you going to take a break, or what's next up for Board Wreckers?
Yeah, so obviously my focus now is getting an awesome game made, sent to backers, pleasing them. That's the key focus at the moment.
Sure.
I would love to do more things within the Drags to Riches ecosystem, because I think as a brand, it's got value there that, there's plenty of stuff we could do. Oh, yeah. And we're only really representing drag queens in this current game, but drag is a huge family, like I said before, and I'd love to be able to represent other drag artists and drag performers from across the spectrum. So that's definitely something I'm thinking about. And then for my next, I've got a small minor game idea that would be a quick one out the door, which I might do between now and the next big one. But I'd love to work more with my current artist on on that movie monsters, dinosaurs, whatever it is, that thing that's actually, fits really well within both our interests. Because I think we could produce something that's going to be visually stunning with that. And I've not got a solid idea there yet, but I'd say watch this space for some really cool artwork.
Well, for anybody that wants to check this out, you can find it on Kickstarter. It has funded. Are you taking late pledges at all?
Yeah, we will be. I'll be opening up a late pledge manager. So.
And you'll do this with the pledge manager, and I'm sure you'll have a link on that on your website, which is drags2riches.com, and 2 is the number 2, not spelled 2, so drags2riches.com. Right. Check it out. David, I want to wish you all the best this coming year. Congrats again on this campaign. Eh?
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me. It's been brilliant.
No worries. Take care. Cheers. This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply subscribe to our YouTube channel, Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.